Hey there, it's Chie. I'm finally at a place where I'm completely moved in and able to sit down and process all that has transpired since the last video. I wanted to make a video where I can talk about what I've learned up to this point related to 3D and kind of organize my thoughts as to how to move forward from here. I'll break down all the projects into monthly chunks and talk about key takeaways from related projects in parallel to life events. So let's get started. In March, I learned the basics of modeling in 3D space, how to navigate Blender, because everything was brand new at this point. But Blender Guru does a really good job of taking you through each new concept step by step in his well thought out donut tutorial and his beginner tutorial series. We shipped our stuff in March, all of our belongings pretty much, since it takes about 2 to 3 months or so to get from Japan to America. So we did that, and we did a lot of taking care of loose ends and getting rid of big furniture, trying to get together with friends for the last time in maybe a little bit. In April, after learning about how to make metal materials, I sculpted virtual goo to get a bit of wear and tear and was introduced to the world of baking. Yes, baking. Made some small gadgets like some chopsticks, a hammer. Learned the importance of imperfections in modeling, and the imperfection is what makes good 3D renders look realistic. If it's too clean, it just looks fake, you know? Like this hammer here. I did go in and beat it up a little bit, what I thought was a good amount of beating up and sculpting and giving it character, but it really doesn't show up in this render. I think it's really important to keep in mind what the final render is going to be or what the mesh is for, how close up you're going to be, or what kind of light situation there's going to be, all those things. We focused on making a single object and solidify how to make simple things with fundamental skills and tools for modeling. I also still really suck at lighting, but a lot of things, even still today, is one, saturation is usually off. It's either too much or too little. I haven't really found that good balance. And two, brightness is usually awkward as well. I think they go hand in hand here. So I watched some filming and photographing lights basics on YouTube. This is an ongoing learning process here, lighting. It's fun, but it has been a challenge. In April, we finally moved after living in an empty house for a little bit. We moved countries and continents over the ocean, lived out of a friend's living room, and had the work set up in the living room table. Being back in America, I felt out of place, and it took a little bit to get used to and wrap my head around how to function as a human being again here. Like when people wanting to strike up small talk in the elevator. What am I supposed to say? Or not doing the subtle head bob bow to people when saying thanks at the grocery store when someone held the door open for you. Small things like that. In May, I made several low poly style projects to really get the hang of navigating 3D space on my screen and taking a project from start to a final render. I made the Zelda shield first at the beginning of May, and then made the treasure chest, well, shack, sushi restaurant, then stylized sword. Really focused on this low poly style because it was simple enough to get a high output rate, and I wanted to put out more so that I could go through that process of making a project. In May, I mainly watched Grant Abbott's videos for this phase. New things I learned this month: how to make the low poly look, give objects physics, and use some rigging. And then ended the month with making this jade blade, which had more on hand painting, textures, sculpting, retopologizing, and baking. And also on all the different maps you can get, like ambient occlusion maps and metalness maps. Made a word game in Unreal that works and has cute cows in it. Initially, I didn't really know if I liked the cows, but they grew on me eventually. Also tried dropping my Jade Blade model into a scene where I was learning how to build a level in Unreal Engine. I had to look up how to export things from Blender correctly for this, but it worked eventually. So I instantated, duplicated a couple, and had a little Jade Blade party in my scene. It was pretty fun. In May, we were in Montana visiting with Caleb's parents since we haven't really seen them while we were living in Japan for 2 years. They had some nice juicy beef and elk cuts on standby in their basement in their freezer. So we had some really amazing mouth-watering meals making burgers and steaks. Dogs were a part of everyday life, as well as elk and deer being right outside of your window and also in your room. It was also my birthday in May, and Montana gave me a gift by dusting, or like piling, snow on the ground. Can I just remind everyone that this is in May? Yeah, thanks Montana. I visited this new brewery in town called Missouri River Brewing. Also has a Mexican restaurant right next door that was really amazing. I usually don't like alcoholic drinks since they don't taste very good in my opinion. But they have this beer called Funky Monkey, and it was one of the first beers that I could, have a glass and actually enjoy it. But I still just took sips out of Caleb's glass. I was that person at a brewery who had a glass of water and taking pictures of cool aesthetics on the rails. I took so many pictures for reference of this. People probably thought I was weird, but hey, I got all these reference photos now. How on earth are pillows made in 3D? The seams? Hello? But not any ordinary couch because that would be too bland. No, we make a space couch. I was also interested in learning more about how to generate interesting textures with shader nodes, so I combined that with this couch scene seen in the frame of the couch. I learned a lot about how to make booleans as well, making my first gun in Blender, which in hindsight is not necessarily the technique I will be utilizing that heavily in the way that I learned it, but still useful knowing how to clean up after cutting through a mesh. We drove back to Washington in a truck with all of our stuff, and then drove it back again to return the truck, like a real truck. I didn't dare drive it past their driveway though. That thing was longer than a short bus, no joke. This is when I started feeling like I can relax a little bit and be a normal human again, living in the United States. Up until this point, I couldn't quite put a finger on it, but I felt out of place still. Went back to our friend's living room life, taking our time on deciding where to live and actually move. We made the best out of the local area we were in before moving. Breakfast place, mugs, ice cream. In July, I wanted to make some smaller projects on my own after following some tutorials for the gun. The handheld cassette recorder actually taught me a lot about the importance of blocking out basic shapes first. Just like in 2D, who knew 2D would apply, right? If you have a concept reference, you should break it down into primitives and phases as well to understand how I would go about the project and tackle every aspect of it. Getting ready to move for the last time. We moved 4 times in 4 months. I was ready to unpack our boxes, which at this point have been in boxes for 3 months? I don't know, a really long time, 2 months? I almost couldn't remember what was in them, but I was ready to unpack these and finally be able to have my own space again. We moved a bit outside of the range of city noises, and morning walks and runs are very calming since, well, it's so quiet. Thinking about how to achieve max productivity while maintaining good mental and physical health, since that was thrown out the window last time around. Drew some paintings for my room that I wanted to put up in my new office so I can surround myself with things I like. And also act as a reminder for me to think back to, which I think I'll do a separate video on the meanings behind all the paintings. That sounds like fun. In August, I tested out some routines and work schedules that could be sustained and made into a habit. Went through the second weapon tutorial that came with the first one. I tried to focus on making the weapon look more realistic by balancing the bigger components with smaller details, since the last one kind of looked sad. I don't know how else to describe it. Looking back, okay, wait. I was proud when it was done, right? Looking back at it though, sad. It's a little sad. That's okay. Again, I think Boolean is a useful tool to know how to use and how they operate. But moving forward, I need to learn how to decipher the concepts into what to hard model and what to handle through either fine detailing and sculpting and baking, or texture and adding decals, and makaseru to ambient occlusion and normal maps. opening up Substance Painter for the first time. That was exciting, and learned that there is a lot done in this application. Because my focus is hard surface modeling and game asset creation, thinking about poly count is crucial. Every face and every piece of detail needs to serve a purpose or it gets cut. I also rediscovered the translatable skills of 2D to 3D, thinking in basic shapes, going from big to small, having breathing room in your design, some nice resting spots for the eyes. Imperfections that are purposely applied really brings things to life, like subtle fingerprint smudges and natural wear of the object based on how it's used and functions. We finally moved for the last time, hopefully for a while. I moved in, settling in, found the largest cinnamon roll, figured out how to best go about food prepping, not necessarily meal prepping, but food prepping. Have been exercising every day, trying to get to sleep at the same time every day, 10:30ish bedtime and waking up at 6 a.m. and trying to maximize my hours within the day so that I can reach about 40 hours a week dedicated to hard surface modeling to reach that hireable level of skills. My goal is to always strive to tell a story in an interesting way. I need to be okay with spending more time on one project and giving more attention to detail and purpose to projects and not rush for the sake of getting a final product. I want the things that I make to be more purposeful or full of character and depth and have a background story or a narrative that goes along with each scene. I want to make more full scenes, learn how to make things like electricity and slight animation in the final renders to make things come to life, or put them in grass patches and kitchen counters and underwater, maybe even a spaceship, just to set the scene and the mood a little bit more. Low and high poly, retopologizing, and baking knowledge. Texturing in Substance Painter. Exporting sometimes to Unreal Engine and trying to move it around in the scene. I've never really been a master at any one particular skill before, and I really want to do this 3D thing right. This is actually a third version of this video. The first one, the story I wanted to tell, was not very clear. The second version I made is sitting in my channel privated. I wanted to start making videos consistently, and I think subconsciously wanted to get this one out of the way because it felt like a recap or like a listing of all the things, and it showed. I don't want to make things that are plain and boring. No one wants to see that. I don't want to see that. So why not set out to make interesting things? Because what's the point of trying to rush things if it's not going to produce something that I can be proud of? I hope this one did a better job of capturing a story. Creating things that capture people's attention is an art form that I have not yet mastered. We'll keep trying though, because ultimately all of this painting, modeling, podcasting, videoing is a product of wanting to create experiences and tell stories for people to enjoy. Hope you had fun watching this video and maybe inspired you to make something of your own, to tell your own unique story. There is and probably always will be trying and failing, but that's what's fun about making things. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Hit that like button if you enjoyed hearing about my journey, and subscribe to follow along as I continue making more things. I'm gonna go make some more things now. See you in the next one.